should just check, is it Nahida perhaps who is going to do the minutes? Anyway, we've got a recording, haven't we? So
yeah, that's right, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Laura. That's great. Yeah. So we do have the person who will be making sure we capture all the things we say. And so good morning, everybody. 22nd of September. Warm welcome to you all to our open board meeting. I know how much we all enjoyed, and I did get some feedback on this, meeting together face to face, of course, last time. And, you know, there's always something lost when we come to virtual, but it's a compliment to us, I think, the way in which we've run these. We've done a good job of them, and it's very much appreciated. And I should say, shouldn't I, from the chair's seat, can I just compliment all colleagues, both non-executive and executive, and indeed otherwise, for the outstanding attendance that we do get at board meetings. Of course, I know that there are occasions when it's impossible for somebody to make it, and we have a couple of those today, of course. But generally speaking, there's terrific full attendance, and that's important for our collective decision making, of course. So I did just want to place on record my thanks for the excellent attendance. So we're recording this meeting, and of course, in the spirit of transparency, we will be publishing this meeting to our YouTube site, and there's an opportunity for any members of the public, any of those we serve, to be able to check in on the details of the meeting. Okay, so a warm welcome to everybody. I won't go through the agenda just yet, because I do know we're going to begin with looking at our spiritual, pastoral and religious care team, which I'm very much looking forward to. So before we start that, I will turn to Saj and ask if he would wish to say anything regarding that. Let's just note who's here then. So firstly, does anybody want to shout up and tell me of anybody that we did expect and who is not here yet?
Max, I don't think John Prasher has joined us, but I think I did say we'll be in and out due to an appointment. So yeah, everybody else.
That's exactly right. No, well said, Laura. That's great. Yes, I know John has a personal issue with a family member that he's to support today, and John will be doing that. So he may just be in and out, as you say. Thank you. Okay, let's begin by noting our apologies. So unless this has changed from the briefing I've got, I don't think we've got Pat today, and I can see that Fahim is present and supporting us from an HR perspective. So Fahim, good morning, and thank you for your attendance. Great stuff, yeah. And I also think that Matthew Horner, our Director of Finance, wasn't able to join us today. And again, entirely sensibly, he's asked Michael to represent him, and I can see Michael's on the call, although with the faces in front of me, I can't see you, Michael, but I'm assuming you can hear me fine. And thank you again for being here to represent finance. And can you hear me okay, Michael? Yeah?
Sorry, I'm just pressing unmute. Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you, Max.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. That's great, Michael. Thank you. And we do have apologies from Mohammed Hussain, our non-exec director. I know Mohammed has a strategy day today in relation to his other business. I think it's NHS Digital, and so he's unable to join us today. So we do have apologies from Mohammed. And I do note the potential for John Prasher just to be a little in and out today, but that's hopefully okay. Now, we did have some, excuse me for doing this, but I want to make sure I'm welcoming people who are with us. There was a chance that Catherine, our governor, was going to join us. I don't think I can see Catherine's name on the people list, so it may be that she's not just quite here yet. And I think I can see Mohammed Altayeb, one of our graduate management trainees, who's observing board today. Mohammed, have I got that right? Can you hear me okay? And a warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yes, you got my name correct, and thank you for having me today. And
you're very welcome. I'm delighted you're taking an interest in board business, Mohammed. And Mohammed, may I say that, of course, if you have to dip in and out, it's absolutely fine. You're an observer, and you're most welcome whenever you can, and indeed whenever you can't, if there's other duties you have to see to. Great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Now, also, I did have a note that Aki may be joining us, Trainee Knowledge and Resource Librarian, Observing Board. Aki, I can see your name on the call. Can you hear me okay? And a warm welcome to you too.
Hi, Max. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm just here to observe and find out a little bit more. So thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. And we all, as directors, welcome the interest in anybody as to board business. So, Aki, warm welcome. And the same, of course, goes for you. If you have to dip in and out, it's entirely understandable. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we may have Jo Hilton. I don't see Jo's name on the list. I know she is, I think, joining us later for some of the items. So it may be that Jo joins us later. And unless I'm missing a person on the list there, hopefully not. That's great. Okay. I'll run through what we're going to do agenda-wise when we've heard from our Spark team. But as I say, let me repeat the warm welcome. Let me ask before we start that we might just pause a moment to think of our late Queen Elizabeth, our monarch, for the service that she's given to this country, and may she, of course, rest in peace. So I will now turn to Saj, I think, just in case there's anything Saj would wish to bring our attention to prior to hearing from, I can see Mohammed Arshad is with us. It may be, Mohammed, that you have a colleague with you, but we're delighted to hear about what was our chaplaincy service. I'm excited to hear about this because my impression is we've made changes to become much more inclusive in terms of the service that we provide. And that seems to me to have been a terrific example of some change that was maybe needed. So I'll turn to Saj first and then to the team. So, and I'm saying that, and I'm looking, yes, I can see you on the call, Saj. Yeah, I'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Max, for that. I suppose I better acknowledge before we make a start that the Spark team actually sits within Karen, Chief Nurse's portfolio. But I've got the pleasure of welcoming, as you say, Maulana Mohammed Arshad, who's obviously head of the Spark team and Imam, and then Joanna Mutlow, who's a Spark practitioner. Yes. Board will recall back in July last year, we had a presentation from the colleagues that are present today with us on the transition to becoming the Spark team. And today feels like a real opportunity to learn about a year on from the Spark team coming into existence, the work that's happened and the work that's planned for the year ahead. So it was a really good opportunity, and I'm really glad that both Maulana Mohammed Arshad and Joanna have been able to attend today to give us an overview. So if it's okay, Max, I think I'll pause there and hand over to Mohammed Arshad and Joanna to take us through the presentation that they've got for us.
Perfect introduction, Saj. Thank you very much. Mohammed and Joanna, a warm welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us, and we are interested and very supportive of what you're doing. We're keen to hear and learn.
Thank you, Max, and thank you, Saj, for that warm introduction from you both. As you know, I'm Mohammed Arshad, head of the Spark team and also the Imam for the Bradford Teaching Hospitals. Today, we'd like to share with you our 3-year change program that we have. And it's the first completed year that we've implemented our Spark model with, and just to share with you some of the changes that we made and some of the future ideas that we're thinking of making into year 2. Alongside me is my colleague who's worked very heavily with this model, Joanna, and allow her to introduce herself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share what we're doing. If we go to the next slide, I thought it'd be a good idea to just remind ourselves how we're different, what this new paradigm is about. So firstly, we use belief as an inclusive term. So we all have beliefs. For some of us, they're religious beliefs, some of us follow faith, but everyone has beliefs. So we use that as an inclusive term. The change that we've made signals that we want to be inclusive in our service. And the name chaplaincy had lots of baggage with it, although it had lots of positive things, but we decided to retire that name. And we thought it would take quite a long time for that change to happen, but we were just reflecting today in the office, everybody seems to know what Spark is now. So that's really excellent how that's happened. The model starts with the realities of what was 2021, not the traditions of 1948 when chaplaincy in the NHS was first set up. So we're respectful for that past, but we're looking to the realities of the future and the more diverse society that we have these days. We included a lot of views and beliefs when we developed our model, and we ended up talking about it being a cross belief rather than a multi-faith model, which means the multi-faith idea is that you sort of go and visit your own and it's quite separated. Our idea is that we have a cross belief, so we understand what each other brings, but we have a common approach in the first instance with everybody that we meet. And our model places equality and person-centered care at its very core. So if we go on to the next slide. So our model has 7 anchors that fix it within the trust and give it stability. With a lot of chaplaincies around the country, they change subject to changes in leadership, and we wanted to safeguard this model as going through any changes that may happen in the future. So if we next click, please. And the next one. So it has 12 characteristics. So we agreed as a team how we behave as Spark practitioners, what is common in our behaviour. It doesn't matter so much what we believe, what matters is how we behave. So we have a common set of characteristics which define the way we work, the way our volunteers work, the way our bank practitioners work, so that there is consistency and transparency in what we do. If I can have the next click. And we've written ourselves 54 service standards, which give us a mechanism to evaluate what we're doing and to, again, make us transparent in what we're aspiring to. It's a very difficult area to measure impact and to look at, show evidence for what we do, because a lot of it happens on a very intuitive and intimate level. But that's what our ambition is, to work towards those standards. Okay. Next click.
So what we decided to do was, first of all, look for a place where we can all be together. Up until now, especially during the pandemic, we were scattered. Some of us were in the field house, some of us were in Underwater 22 by the prayer room. It was about finding a space where the whole team could be together. So we found a place, and it was the Prospect Cottage just by the Listening for Life Centre. The whole team came together alongside the other patient experience teams who were all under our one big remit. The most important thing was that we started working together and understanding each other. From there, we started looking at what are our needs, what changes do we need to make. We looked at our team structure and revised that. We looked at how many core Spark practitioners do we need, how are we going to be supported by our bank staff, and then hopefully by our volunteers also. We changed the rota system, which actually meant that there was a massive reduction in costings without compromising the service. With that, as a unified body, we were looking at how can we have a similar uniform, bearing in mind our religious attires are different and we need to respect that. So we came up with the idea of at least having body warmers where staff would also recognise us. So we're about to receive these and we're looking forward to this. Alongside this, we started looking at working closely with other wards. And one of the things that we started implementing was being part of ward handovers. And that's been a significant move and a very rewarding move for not only our staff, but also for ourselves and the patients. We've had a warm welcome, and there's another slide which soon you'll see what the summary means to us, basically. So we've also started inviting guest speakers from other teams as part of our monthly team meetings, so that we get to know a little bit more about their service and vice versa. Next slide, please. And this is a summary and some feedback from maternity where we implemented the handover over a 6-week period. Be interesting to read the last 6 lines and the emphasis in there about reduction of complaints and spending, having more time to spend with patients. Okay, next slide, please. Also, during the month of Ramadan, we looked at the significance of the fasting period and how that would impact on our services throughout the whole hospital, with having a large population of Muslim staff members. So the fast packs were introduced, and the fast packs were there so that our staff could actually still be on the wards serving our patients whilst opening their fasts at the same time, and having service running as well as being able to open their fast. This was replicated nationally by other trusts, and certainly got a word round on Twitter with thousands of comments that were made on this. And we felt really proud for this, and it was really highly supported by Karen Dover. So thank you for that, Karen. Hopefully we'll be doing something next year on this also. The other thing that I feel really proud of is having our first non-religious hospital funeral delivered by Joanna. Up to now, we've actually made do with our Church of England chaplain going and doing a non-religious funeral. But now that we have Joanna on board, it's going to make a massive difference to our patients. And we've started having the regular slots in our Let's Talk, again, to get our word out for our staff. Okay, next slide, please.
Well, this is the one that Arshad didn't want to talk about because it's an award that we got as a team, and it makes him shy. So we got an award from a diversity award as a team, which was great. But we're also getting external inquiries about the Bradford model. So it's on the website, and it is being acknowledged across the country that there is a model that's happening in the north, I've been told, which is breaking some new ground. In that excerpt from the email from the maternity, you saw that they felt that our contribution can reduce complaints. I think we've also taken the role increasingly in de-escalation of different difficult situations, and that's also something that we're happy to step into. But the last thing that we wanted to talk to you about progress is the app that we're developing. Now, I'm hoping if you click on the app, that will open it up in a new window. If you click on that picture. No, that's opening the next slide. If you actually click on the link that's in the app, the picture of the app, does that take you to the
Because I'm sharing this window, I'll just have to stop sharing and go into the other screen.
Okay, but if you could share the live app, then I can just demonstrate it.
Thank you, Katie.
So this app's being developed with Bradford University. We secured some funding. It's cost probably, I think, about £11,000. If this was done commercially, it would have cost 5 or 6 times that amount. So we've done very well. Have you? The other option is that
I see that screen. If I click into it, it's just an image, so it's not actually got a link attached to it.
So can you allow me to share my screen and then I can show you the app that way?
Yeah, of course, that'll be fine. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Katie.
Can you see where we've been able to share the screen? Should I be doing something, or are we waiting?
If it's not doing it, by all means, you can talk through it now, and then we can share the link with the board members, and they can go into it in their own time. That's not.
Thanks, actually.
Yeah, we're wary of sharing the link because it's not live yet. That's the only problem. It is embedded in the PowerPoint, but if it goes out any further, that embedded link should come out. We really wanted to demonstrate it because it brings to life what we're trying to do. So the idea behind this app, I will keep talking about it and hoping that we can see it at some point through a screen share. So it starts off thinking about what the main issues are that people deal with in hospital, and how we can support them, and that then links people back through to videos of us talking about them. It's very dynamic as an experience. We can then give self-help resources. So there's prayers, there's hymns. We're getting some hymns recorded at Bradford Cathedral to go in there. There's meditation and mindfulness resources that people can access for themselves. Then we have a section which is information about different beliefs, and that's the one I really wanted to show you as well. That has a drop-down menu on it with, Mr. Singh comes into hospital, the staff don't really know anything about Sikhism. They can go into that guide, click on that, and then there's a whole load of drop-down menus around palliative care, death rituals, eating, modesty and dress, spiritual care, ethical dilemmas, to do with each of 6 religions and beliefs that we have in there at the moment. So that's a really good resource for staff for looking at. So Mr. Singh comes in, he's in palliative care. What do they need to know about any traditions? When Mr. Singh dies, what do they need to know about how to manage that situation with appropriate and sensitive care? Then we have a section about our team where you can click on each of us, and there's a little video about us talking about why we do what we do, and then a little bit about our belief. And the importance in there is that we talk about why we do what we do. People get to know us as people. It's not the religion that leads our approach to this. So everybody can feel they can talk to any of us without feeling that because people misunderstand. They think someone's going to come and say prayers with them. That's only if someone requests that. And then we have another button which helps people access referrals and resources like a Quran cube or a Bible or a rosary or something that they want from there. So it's a great little tool. Again, we've shown it in several places and people are very excited about it. I've shown it to some people in the prison service. I've shown it to other people in other trusts. I've shown it to people in the military, and everyone's going, whoa, we need this thing. It's just so compact and so accessible and so immediate. So I'm happy to demo that another time if people want it, but there's 2 things that are attached to that. One is we'd like to put more than 6 beliefs on it and more than 6 circumstances, but we'd need another bit of money to do that. And the other thing is to say we need to know what we're doing as a commercial response. You know, are we going to license this? Are we going to give this? Do we want to make money out of it? Is also something that we need to know. So the timescale is that it's being loaded onto the Trust website as we speak. And then we will launch it with a QR code to staff and patients probably end of October, November time. So that's where we are with that. So next slide, please.
Okay, so part of our next 12 months development, we are looking at the Spark team to be diverse as possible from an equality and equity aspect, emphasizing on the needs of our service, and that we will be looking at further recruitment. We will also be looking at, next point please, bringing back our Spark volunteers, the existing ones, and also to recruit new ones, so that we're able to aim to get to all our family sites. At this moment in time, we have been unable to do that, and our other sites are just as important. Next point, please.
Yeah, so obviously we've just talked about the rollout of the Spark app, and we're hoping to do that in line with a sort of bit of a push about Spark in November. linking to Interfaith Week. So hopefully you'll see more of us in November. We're hoping to raise our profile a bit across the trust in various ways. Next point, please. We're planning to work with education to deliver more training related to spiritual care and Spark in general, and cultural competence training. We want to develop the tranquility and worship spaces. So I put tranquility space in there because we have chapel and we have Muslim prayer room, but where do people go who want peace and tranquility space, who don't feel comfortable in those spaces? So we're hoping to get a neutral space that can be used by people of other beliefs and people without religion. And then also we're doing a lot of work on trying to establish methods of data recording and collecting evidence for what we do. As I say, it's quite elusive, but we're trying to have hard data on what we've done. We've got things like numbers of visits and numbers of wards we go to, number of referrals, but we want some better qualitative evidence as well of what we're doing. Next slide, please.
Thank you, and that's the end of our presentation. So if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take those on.
That's great. Thanks very much, Mohammed. Joanna, thank you for what you and your team do. And thank you for coming today and just bringing us up to date with where we are. Saj did a good job there for me, Joanna, because with the app, we will do that. We will share that among all directors, the link to that, so that colleagues can have a look at that in their own time. It also struck me that
please not share it any further. That's really important. It's not shared any further until we go live.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm glad you've emphasised that, actually, because I was going to say that I will have a chair's bulletin coming up towards the end of the year. And if you felt it was appropriate, that goes to members, of course. And if we felt it was appropriate to promote the app at that time, I would be very happy to include a section in the chair's bulletin for that. So yeah, that's absolutely terrific. Equality, inclusive, the cross beliefs. I love the idea of the team body warmer. Of course, you should have that single identifiable uniform, really, isn't it? But terrific, yeah. So well done, well done. Now I'll open up for any questions or points, and I do of course want to give our chief nurse the opportunity to have a comment as well. So Karen, I will come to you for perhaps closing comments on this. But let's open up for any discussions, questions, thoughts, comments. So Ray, please do come in.
Thanks, Max, and thank you for the presentation. It was great for me to hear about some of the great work that you're doing, and we're seeing really challenging time to have started this, and really apt time, I think, because obviously it's been difficult for patients and staff alike over recent times. So great to hear about all you're doing, and as Max said, this absolutely embodies the diverse and inclusive approach that we really want to celebrate here in Bradford. So that it couldn't be better from that perspective. I'm not surprised that words got out that good things are happening in the north. My question really is, so obviously the support that you can offer is, maybe originally sort of thought around patients, but what about the staff? How much access and support is being sought from you by our staff? Because, as I said, it's been a challenging time for patients, but an equally challenging time for staff. So, are staff making use of the opportunities that your service can provide as well?
Okay, thank you for that, Ray. To answer that question, two elements come to mind here. One is the pandemic. During the pandemic, our staff acted there to be, and my team acted there to be there for all the staff and for all the patients also. And that actually made staff realise that we're not there just as chaplains for patients. So that's brought about a big change. The second change that's happened is through using the new title of Spark. Once upon a time, we had the misconception of chaplaincy, they're only there for the patients and those patients that are dying. But now we've emphasized that we are on the patient's journey as well as our staff's journey. So we have allocated an office just by the back of the main concourse, by the main reception desk, for any staff to come and see us anytime that they want to. That's something that we are promoting for staff to come and see us and to talk to us about. Also, if they can't come to us, we can go to them. So there has been a bit of work that's been done there, and the handovers is to promote that.
Does that help, Ray? Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, I just think it's it's a great opportunity, as you say, Oshad, for our staff. They've gone through a tough time, and to know that the support is there. So I'm just interested to know, has that changed? Have you had some real uptake there from staff? Because it would be great if that had happened.
Thank you. And it would appear so. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Ray. And Sugra, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, I think this week I had the opportunity to sort of benchmark practice with a South East Trust, and I wanted to just sort of acknowledge and commend the work that's been done locally, because it is very progressive in terms of being a more inclusive service. So I'm not surprised to hear that there's external interest, because people will be looking to places like Bradford to see how we do things. A question that I had, and it's possibly just a point of clarification, and I may have misheard. I think you said something about joining handovers or joining ward handovers, and that's brilliant from the team's point of view and in terms of staff awareness of what the service does. But I just wanted to clarify what that might mean in terms of access and consent, particularly if confidential patient information is being discussed.
So as part of our work, we are able to have access to EPR, and we've signed up to that also. So patients actually, where during those handovers, we do find that staff actually do make referrals there and then to us. So those are able to understand what our role is, and we're not seen as an external team, but we are part of BTHFT, and actually making those referrals to us, and are quite comfortable from that point of view, because from an IG point of view, we are signed up with that, just like anybody else within the trust.
Okay.
That sounds okay, so that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Ray, did you want to come back in on this point? And Paul, I know you are waiting too. Ray? Yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, as Caldecott Guardian for the trust, this is something I'd be comfortable with, with the things that have been put in place. So I think it's an excellent question, Sugra, but yeah, I think it's entirely appropriate, because it does add to the holistic care of patients.
Thank you very much, Ray. Yes, yeah. And Paul, may I bring you in, please?
Yeah, thanks, Max, and thanks, colleagues. It was a fantastic presentation. I appreciate that the underlying challenges in some communities are complex, and there's never a simple solution. But I just wondered, in the context of the last couple of months, and then the highlighting the weekend of tensions in places like Leicester, whether there are opportunities for us to use that wider NHS network to pick up and promote the example of Spark, and then the app as well that we were talking about, to be part of that offer. Say, not that there are immediate remedies. All of these things take time and are sophisticated, but I just wondered whether, as if you like, the NHS community, we could proactively identify and get this stuff in some of those populations that are perhaps more like ourselves, and clearly also at the moment are experiencing some degree of tension.
As an example of an entirely equal and diverse service, Paul.
Completely. As I say,
Yes.
I am not the person to come in or to pretend to understand the I might understand tensions in other parts of the world, Max, as a consequence of historical challenges and rivalries, as my accent may betray. But I just think that that opportunity to, it's not a band-aid, but clearly that idea that we've got a set of assets here that are proven really important and valuable in terms of community harmony and playing our part in that. Again, it was just the opportunity to use the NHS family collectively to support those conversations.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah. So obviously, I'm sure Karen is hearing that as well, and Mohammed and Joanna. It's not fair to try and test you here now, but there's a great suggestion there from the senior director, of course, as to the usefulness, benefits, and support, wide support that this service can provide. So unless you had any immediate reaction to that point, shall I suggest that the support from us directors for you to consider that and consider ways in which you can promote that service, that wide service to people?
Thank you, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I've got a couple of points in the chat, so I'll just check up. Grateful to John Holden for his point about the commercial approach potential, and John would be happy to speak with you guys regarding that. John, colleagues can read the chat comment, but is there anything you would wish to emphasise or add to that?
Thank you, Max. No, I think I've said it in the chat. I think it's a conversation we need to have. It seems very attractive to defend intellectual property and seek to license things, but I think there are some bigger questions at play there about risk and reward, and also just about the ethos of it. Is, you know, with something this good, might we just want to share it with the NHS, allow them to pinch with pride and get the benefit? You know, not everything is about pound, shillings and pence. So that's a question we'd want to ask ourselves. But we can get good advice on the practicalities of doing this. And although normally it's not a big part of our way of working, you know, we're not one of those trusts with a franchise in Dubai or something. You know, that's not our ethos. I do think it's a conversation we should have. In answer to Janet's point, no, the University of Bradford doesn't have the IP. They're purely a contractor in this. It's the Working Academy, and they help us with all sorts of media, digital things, website design, and indeed creating apps. We have a framework contract with them, so we just procure their service. But if there were IP, it would be ours, but we haven't had that discussion. I mean, we could enter into some kind of IP sharing arrangement, etc., but that's down the track.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for picking that up as well, John. That's great. And I will turn to Karen for final comments. If I can ask a last question from the table, Mohammed and Joanna, I was interested in, do we feel that we're perhaps a long way ahead of many other trusts throughout the country in terms of what we've done with our chaplaincy services and going to Spark? Are we quite unique with this, or have we joined a few others who have this more diverse approach?
I think one of the uniqueness has happened here is that I've been let in, and Arshad has been very open as a leader of this service to difference and change. So, you know, that there's only a few humanists who are employed across the country in England, and because there's a perception that people come with an anti-God or an anti-religious point of view, whereas humanists are all about equality and justice. Yes. So we want to work alongside and with. We just add value. We don't take anything away. So what is different here is that message has been heard very clearly. And the fact that I came in as a colleague rather than as a consultant or as a top-down approach has meant we've evolved as a team. So there's a huge strength and unity in this team, which I think is unique. I think, funnily enough, I think Leicester is the other area where they are further ahead, but they're still working more in a multi-faith approach. I don't know anywhere that's working in this cross-belief approach that we have. But obviously, so I think we are unique in a lot of ways, and I think the unity in our team is something that is unique.
Great stuff. Well done. As people often remind me, even in the nearly 4 years now that I've taken up as chair, we don't shout out enough sometimes in Bradford about terrific developments we're taking and how modern an approach we're taking here. It's great. And from a city steeped in faith as we are, of course, and many of us around this table will have strong faith. It's terrific to see such an open approach. Sylvia, final comment, and then I'll go to Karen. So Sylvia, with you, thanks. Oh, you might just want to take you're just on mute, Sylvia.
No, hang on, there we are. Sorry.
Hear you nice and clear. Yeah.
I was aware of the very valuable work this team was doing during the pandemic, and so had lots of very positive feedback from families in the area. My question really was around the sort of well-being of staff and how that feels for staff now. We hear lots in the People Academy about sort of mental health and well-being, and I wondered whether there was a sort of particular issue or whether there were actions in place to address any residual impact on this team in particular.
Thank you. So we did, of course, establish the convention that we're here for staff as well as patients. But great point, yeah. Again, Arshad, Joanna, is there anything else you would wish to say about support for staff and the position perhaps they're in at the moment? So, yeah.
Sorry, Max, so just to clarify, just for members of this team, because they were in a position where they were seeing and hearing and being part of conversations with patients in very difficult circumstances, weren't they? And it's about how the team are now on the back of that.
I see. Thank you. So that's a great point. Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Suga. What first and foremost is just to emphasise on what Joanna said. We are a great team and we have been supporting each other throughout that pandemic, and it's continued. Yes, it did have an impact on us. However, the strength of our team and the diversity within our team, understanding that we are all people and humans and we do need to be supported, has been really, really important for us on the shop floor, so to speak. Because if we're well within ourselves, then only then can we support others. At the same time, we've had some really good support from Karen Dauber downwards with our senior management. So we're really, really grateful for that. And if ever there's an issue within anything that we need our support for, I think we were always heard. So just to reassure you with that, thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thanks, Asha and Joanna. We are proud of what you do, and we want to promote and celebrate the terrific work you're doing. So thank you. Karen, should I give the last word to you, please? As Saj said with courtesy at the start, this does, of course, sit within your domain. But Saj did a good job stepping in there, didn't he, and introducing the team. So, Karen, shall I turn to you as chief nurse?
That's teamwork, Max.
I like that.
So, thank you very much, and thank you to the team. I just wanted to reflect, really. So 6 years ago, when I started in the trust, we had a really good chaplaincy service, and I was blown away by it, by the leadership of Arshad and others, and the inclusivity of it. And you'll recall that one of our governors made this wacky suggestion about bringing a humanist element to it, and I must admit, I was a bit like skeptical on that. But actually, it was the best thing we've ever done. And it's actually brought a new way of looking at our services and bringing our services into the next century, really. So we were already ahead of the curve for our services. We're now even better and leading the way. So it was just to acknowledge the work of Arshad and Joanna, and of the governors that raised this in the first instance as well, that made us aware of it. And it just shows where that governor sort of exec and challenge really works and has had a really positive outcome. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly and invite Arshad just to comment briefly is Arshad mentioned the volunteers. So we did have chaplaincy volunteers. We now have Spark volunteers. One of our well-known volunteers sadly died very suddenly a couple of weeks ago. So I just wondered if Arshad just wanted to acknowledge that. I have written to the family and expressed our thanks and my thanks for the service of this individual. But Arshad, I wondered if you wanted a couple of words.
Well said, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, sadly, this individual did die due to having seizures, and this one seizure unfortunately led to her death. We've been supporting the family and also acknowledged her work, so thank you for that, Karen. Also, these things do happen. We have had a number of deaths, especially with our elderly volunteers that we've had in the past. and we ensure that they are supported. Throughout the pandemic, they haven't been able to come on board for the right reasons. However, we as a team have been making phone calls to ensure that they are well, looking after their well-being, and just to keep them in the loop so that they're not feeling neglected or distanced from us. So we still have that contact, and it's only right that we do that as good human beings.
Thank you. Thanks, Asha. Thanks, Joanna. And Karen, two terrific points at the end. Thanks very much. It struck me, Karen, how deeply embedded in our kindness initiative the work of this team seems to be, and clearly a very, very strong patient focus, which we all care about. So, well, we've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and the briefing and the discussion. Thank you. We, as the Board of Directors, would wish to support you in everything we can as we get towards the end of the year, and we're promoting the app, for example, and the continued work of the team a year in as the new Spark team. So in the absence of any further comments, I'll check whether Asha or Joanna would have wished to say anything to close, and we'll move on with board business. So, guys, anything to finish with?
No, we're just grateful for sharing this and having the opportunity. So thank you all. Thank you.
Well, you go into your working day with our sincere thanks for what you do. So great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Have a good day. Thank you. Well, there you go, everyone. I thought that was a terrific briefing. And it really struck me as, you know, come on, we're ahead of the game and we're not there. And it seems to me that we're modernised. We haven't lost the religious aspects at all. I would even suggest we've strengthened it by taking on a more diverse humanist approach as well. So I think it's fantastic what the team do. And the discussions there and points raised were really, really good. So thanks, everybody. So shall we take a breath and start to think about our board business of the day? Plenty to get through. We've quite a long day together, haven't we? And I'll try and keep things moving as quickly as we can. Let's just take a pause and think about what we're going to do. As ever, there will be my report, of course, and the opportunity for Mel verbally to bring us right up to date with what she thinks we as directors should be aware of. We will take the section 4 is delivery of the Trust's corporate strategy. So we're going to take the digital strategy annual report, which we're asked to note, and it's good there that it's about progress in Trust and beyond with partners. So thank you to Paul and team for that. We're going to take the nursing and midwifery strategy, and Karen and I have actually spoke about this prior to board, and we do agree that actually, although it shows to note on the papers, we are asking for board approval stroke endorsement of that. We're conscious of the importance of this strategy, and actually it does need an opportunity for all directors to be able to comment. So I hope you feel able to, what looks like a terrific strategy, hope you feel able to approve that, but that will be the ask actually as we talk about the nursing and midwifery strategy. We'll hear again, there's an approval point from Ray regarding our research strategy, and the two appendices attached there are the strategy itself and the City of Research framework, which promotes that whole system research. So some really exciting stuff there. I think it's a compliment to us. I know I'm doing that a little bit today, but it's a compliment to us as directors, how we have increased the visibility of research in our discussions and amongst our conversations at board. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing it, Ray. We'll then turn to Julie and to Michael for anything they wish to bring to our attention regarding finance and performance. And of course, we'll do the EPRR standards, the 64 standards, and we'll note that there are 7 that are still partially complete, and Sarge will, I'm sure, just brief us on that. We will then move on to quality and patient safety, again, academy-led, of course, and Janet, I'll be turning to you first, please, to ask your views on work of the academy there. We have the CQC inspection reports regarding urgent and emergency care services, and then the maternity services update. And as ever, there's a lot of data to take in there, but we'll be joined, I think, by Sarah and some other senior nurses, I believe, for that. We can see there are some should do's there that we might just want to have a think about. 4 should do's, but I think the general feel of that was it was a good inspection. And of course, sorry, I went back to CQC inspection there, but maternity services update, we do need to, of course, reflect on the the pattern of stillbirths that we've sadly seen, and I can see there's been a lot of work on the potential reasons for that. So thank you again for the briefings there. And Karen will finish the quality and patient safety aspect with an opportunity to bring us up to date on vaccination programme, COVID-19. We'll then turn to our people, and we'll take, as ever, the report from the chair. And I'll be looking, I think, towards Karen, although we do recognise that I think John Prashar chaired the July meeting. But Karen, of course, I would turn to you to lead anything you would wish to bring to directors' attention there, please. Looking after our people, we'll turn to Fahim. And again, it's a standing item about how we are supporting our staff with the difficult times that we're going through. Opportunity for Mel to bring our attention to anything Equality and Diversity Council wise, and Ray brings the Health Education England self-assessment return and the positive findings and some challenges that he'll be sharing with directors there. We'll turn to John for an opportunity to bring us up to date with partnerships and anything that might arise from that. And then Barry will take us through the report from the chair of the Audit Committee, as well as some revised terms of reference, minor revisions for our approval, we hope. That's the time at which we will reflect through John on the board assurance framework, and Laura as well, I think, and high-level operational risks, and see whether we feel that we're accurately recording those and whether we need to make any amendments. We'll finish with some governance issues and quite obviously some fairly heavy papers there. Premises assurance model progress report, annual security report, the annual Data Protection Officer Information Governance Report. We'll be welcoming Graham, I think, to join us for that. Membership plan update and use of the trust seal, where that's had to be used in the past months. Colleagues, I know it takes a few minutes just for me to run through the agenda, but I do like to orientate us for what we're going to discuss. Have I missed anything? Is there any other business that I need to give time for? Does anybody bring any items of other business? If not, that's absolutely fine. Of course, if they arise during the meeting, I will try to deal with them. Barry is good often at reminding me of the importance of Annex 1, as well as Annex 2 and 3, of course. But Annex 1, just a reminder for us all, that's the one that has the integrated dashboard and indeed the finance report and performance report that contain a lot of detail that hopefully will properly support the items as we go through the sections. But do remember, please, there's a full finance report and performance report, and I know colleagues will have read those, and the integrated dashboard sits there as well. So that's what we're going to try and get through. And before I turn to my own report, I should maybe just check with John Holden, if you don't mind, John. We will reflect on the board assurance framework and high-level operational risks as we close our business discussions. But is there anything, John, that you'd want to bring to our attention right away at the start of the meeting in relation to that, or those?
Yeah, so the only thing I would say is Barry kindly shared with Laura some questions he had about risks which have been on the risk register for a long time, high-level risks on the risk register for a long time, and understanding how we're assured that mitigations will be effective if the target date continually moves. So with colleagues, I thought we'd pick that up as part of the item on the BAF and high-level risks. And I think in a way that's a more useful and substantive conversation than just tripping through the regular report. So with your permission, that's what I'll do when we come to that item. Apart from that, no, there's nothing I was going to raise.
Oh, no, thank you, John. I'm glad I asked you then, because you've nicely orientated us as to what the point of that might be as we come towards the close of our discussions. That's terrific. Thank you very much, John. Okay. So in the absence of any other business, and people know what we're seeking to try and get through by something like 2 o'clock, let's get on with it. Shall we turn then to the minutes of our open board face-to-face meeting on the 14th of July? And may I ask whether they are an accurate record of that meeting or whether any amendments are requested? Laura, please.
Sorry, Chair, if I missed this at the start, I just wasn't sure if you'd asked for declarations of interest.
I've rushed through them, haven't I? Getting straight to the CSU. Thank you very much. Laura, well done. Thank you. And of course, I should check that people have noted the declarations of interest and ask whether are they in any way inaccurate in relation to any of our colleagues. Would anybody wish to declare anything? Paul, please.
Yeah, Max, I don't think it's wholly material, but just in terms of changes, my son has moved from being an employee of RDash to being an employee of Yorkshire Ambulance Services in the interim period.
Thank you, Paul. So we'll note that amendment and we'll make the amendment appropriately. Thank you. And Barry, had you intended to come in? I'm sorry if I've cleared your hand there.
No, I was wanting to make a point on the minutes, so I'll hang on until we move back to those.
And we're there now, Barry. So if it's convenient, please do tell us what we need to hear from that. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a point that I raised in the performance section of the last board meeting when I asked about the current rating of our stroke treatment, which I don't see reflected there. And I don't think we got as far as a formal action, but I suggested that we sort of further emphasise the stroke treatment ratings in our regular reporting.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's note that. Could we deal with anything now, Barry, in an attempt to deal with your particular query, or are you asking that something might be shared later?
At the time, Ray and Saj gave a sort of an update in terms of our SNAP rating and some reassurances about the work taking place to return us to an improved rating level. I just think it's important for us to keep an eye on that as a key aspect of our treatment. I'd just like to see something in the performance reporting from month to month in that regard.
In relation to stroke performance. Thank you, Barry. So let's just highlight that perhaps wasn't emphasised quite as clearly as had been intended at the meeting. And Saj, may I look at you as Chief Operating Officer and ask whether you find that reasonable and you will support the provision of more detailed information?
Yeah, of course we can, Chair. We can look to that to one of the performance reports that we bring to board.
Thank you very much. Barry, thank you. Saj, thank you for that. And Julie, may I turn to you, please?
Just for Barry's thing, I've made a note to pick it up in F&P as well at our meeting on the 28th. So we pick it up and have a look there as well.
Perfect. And that's working together. That's great. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you. Any other comments on the minutes? Thank you for that, Barry. If there are no comments, can I take it that we do approve, otherwise with that single additional emphasis on stroke performance, that it's a true record? Yeah, it would appear so. Thanks, everybody. And we'll turn to matters arising at item 5. There are 5 actions arising. You can see, colleagues, just give you a moment, that the first 2 are shown as remaining open and currently in progress. That relates to the Patient Recruitment Centre visit and Partnership Board, a mapping exercise of increasing, for many of us, of course, partnership work through the Integrated Care Partnership. In the absence of any comments on those, I'll assume that colleagues are content that they are in progress. We have, under looking after our people, Pat was to update the board offline with further data on percentage of our colleagues currently absent due to reasons of mental health. And Pat does confirm that an email with that detail was sent at the end of August. Can I just be sure that colleagues have received that and do they have any questions regarding it, or can we consider that item closed? It would appear that people have seen that. Thank you, everybody. You might recall, colleagues, that at last board we had a terrific piece of analysis on potential unequal outcomes related to ethnicity and deprivation generally. produced and presented by Carl Stevenson, who did a great job under Sergeant Paul's leadership. And we were keen to know what's the next steps, what we're going to do next, and how often are we going to hear about this sort of analysis. The analysis, you might recall, did provide evidence of some extended weighting in relation to ethnic groups and certainly deprivation. So, Sarge, I know there's a suggestion that perhaps we should update every 6 months. And if other colleagues are happy with that, I am. But I think I'm just keen to know that there is some actual ongoing thoughts about what we do with this data and where it should be taken next. Sarge, may I just turn to you and ask whether is there anything you're able to share, please, with that?
Yeah, of course, Chair. And obviously you'll recall that what we were highlighting was the data analysis, which showed us the discrepancy in terms of waiting time. And one of the things that we identified as a result of that was certainly for the core 20 group, the different proportions of patients coming through a routine, a fast track or an urgent route. So the data analysis piece, I think we should repeat in 6 months' time to show whether there has been any progression. But behind that sits a whole host of elements of work which we recognise isn't something that we are able to do on our own as an organisation, indeed require us to act as system in place. And colleagues will have seen, no doubt, the numerous tweets that are out there about the health inequalities workshop that was happening yesterday, in fact, at Bradford Place level around this very topic and this agenda. So I think there's certainly assurance that there's lots going on. There's work going on in our organisation, but it's bigger than just us as an organisation. There's lots going on outside, and there's specific work going on, certainly in terms of LD within our organisation. So I think from an assurance perspective, the work that we're doing around the data analysis is around us bringing back to board a view on how things have changed over a 6-month period. But underneath that, on a day-by-day basis, there's activities underway to try and address the health inequalities agenda. So that's the suggestion, was to bring back that in 6 months' time to share what the data is showing us rather than anything else.
Thank you, Sarge. Sarge, I don't want to create a lot of work for anybody, but would we as directors be able to collectively articulate 5 or 6 examples, perhaps, of that sort of work that's seeking to eliminate inequalities? I'm just wondering whether maybe for next board, would it be possible perhaps just to highlight, as I say, just maybe some key interventions that are being taken so that we can start to talk of them and share them and promote them ourselves?
Yeah, of course. What we'll do, and Chair, is I'll work with obviously John and Paul and look to try and give you some sound bites that we can share amongst exec, non-exec directors around the work that's happening, of course.
Yeah, I'd welcome that. Thank you, Sarge. As I say, I don't want to create a bureaucracy of work for somebody, but it would be good for directors to have some examples of some of the things we're doing to try and address any inequalities. And I know from recent conversations with some fellow chairs that we're doing a good job here. We're genuinely trying, and we do have inequality at the centre of our thinking often when we're on with strategies and policies and service delivery. So thank you to you all for that. Sarge, thank you for the offer to produce a short briefing, perhaps, for directors that would just help us know what's happening. And we look forward to seeing the additional analysis that will be produced for us in 2 boards' time. So thank you very much for that, Sarge. That's great. Can I assume, with no hands raised, that colleagues are happy with that? They're pleased to know of some progress to tackle those issues, and happy to have the analysis repeated, maybe even extended, but I'm sure there'll be talks about that as to how we do that. Okay. Final action related to children's services, and we heard a little about young mums. Karen, I'm hoping you've had the chance to at least see the action. It was about whether there was any indication of what numbers of young mums, 16, 17-year-olds, that we may have here in Bradford. Karen, were you able to provide any idea of volumes there?
I've got some context. So our teenage pregnancy midwife, it's one person at the moment that has a caseload across the Bradford and Airedale patch, and there's currently 30 teenage girls on that pathway. Currently we only see under 16s though. So the 16 and 17-year-olds, what we need to do is understand the data across Bradford and Airedale, and then look at how we link that into continuity of carer. So my colleague over at Airedale, Amanda, who heads up the Better Births work, is looking at that to look at how we implement something for a cross place and how we tackle it across place, because it was a place recommendation and not necessarily just for BTHFT. So within all the numbers on the caseload are currently about 30. We believe it's smallish numbers, but we've not got the exact numbers, but we need to do a bigger piece of work across place.
Karen, that's brilliant. Thank you. I don't mean to be testing you, Karen, but may I ask whether, does 30 sound about a typical sort of ongoing caseload number to you for teenage mums, do you think, in the Bradford area?
I honestly don't know. I just asked them to do a sort of stock take and a straw poll of where it was at as of about 2 weeks ago.
Great. No, that helps the context. Thank you very much, Karen. That's great. So 30 is the current patient caseload there, yeah. Okay. And I'll check whether, if nobody has any further comments, they're happy that that matter's been dealt with as well. So thanks again to exec colleagues for the additional information. Extremely helpful. Thank you. Okay. We will move on then to our business reports. The report from the chairman is tabled at item 6. May I take it as read, please, and perhaps just bring to your attention that it was great to have such a strong attendance at a face-to-face Council of Governors meeting in July. So thanks everybody who, well, you always do, but the attendance again was great and really useful meeting. We are looking, of course, to fill 9 seats on our Council of Governors, and that's what happens with the natural turnover of tenure. And so we're just into the election process now for that. At item 3, I just remind colleagues that our annual general meeting is presently scheduled for Monday, the 31st of October, for an evening 2-hour AGM and annual members meeting in the Sovereign Lecture Theatre. So 31st of October. Laura, I mean, I should look at you and just make sure that that hasn't changed overnight. Is that the latest date, isn't it? 31st of October.
That's right, yeah, it hasn't changed again. No.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I do understand the situation, obviously, with finishing our accounts work, etc. So, yeah, that's understood. Directors, I'm sure you'll join me, please, in welcoming Raquel Likas, our new staff governor, who joins the Governor's Nomination and Remuneration Committee. There's only 6 governors on that. You know the importance of that. They decide whether you're having me and whether you're having Mel, and indeed who the next non-exec directors should be. So it's a very, very important forum, and Raquel, I'm sure, will provide a brilliant staff perspective to that. Okay. My final point, I think, from my report would be a sincere thanks to Paul Rice, who produced, and perhaps it was with the support of his team, of course, a briefing for members on the Trust's digital developments. And I know, of course, we have some stuff on board today for that, but that went down very well, and it was a great addition to the Chair's bulletin. So, Paul, thank you to you and your team for pulling that together and celebrating and recognising the Trust digital developments. So, as ever, the Chairman's report is to note. We have the partnership, the Bradford District and Craven partnership meeting coming up next week. So I will, of course, be there. And there's also Yorkshire and Humber Chairs Network next week as well. So I'll be representing us on a wider stage as well as Trust Business in the coming days. Okay, so I'll check whether there's any questions, queries, anything arising from that. But if not, shall we turn to Mel and give Mel the free microphone and an opportunity for Mel to bring us right up to date with what she would wish to. So Mel, good morning, and it's with you.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you for that. I will start As always, my report with a focus on patients and what's happening in the organisation in respect of the care that we're delivering to those people that need it. So our work remains ongoing to bring down the waiting times for those patients awaiting elective procedures and diagnostics. By the end of September, only 3 patients now will have waited more than 104 weeks. 2 of those are waiting at their request because they do not want the dates that we have offered them to allow them to have their procedures undertaken. And the 3rd was originally scheduled to have their procedure this Monday, the day of the Queen's funeral, and therefore will be now treated in the first weeks of September. Our next big milestones in the achievement of reducing our waiting times objectives are the reduction of patients waiting and ultimately the eradication of waiting beyond 78 weeks and then subsequently 52 weeks. And we have a trajectory that we are working hard to deliver against and managing to do that. That is all about optimising the facilities that we have and the resources that we have at our disposal, which is in part the workforce and changing our working practices. So things like our outstanding theatre programme, looking at maximising the efficiency through the existing resources we have available, both physical and in terms of our workforce and their working practices, reducing vacancies, optimising the team working, looking at new transformational ways of optimising patient flow through those areas. But there is ultimately, in some instances, a physical barrier, which is the amount of operating time we have available on this site and the amount of beds that we have available on this site. And to that end, we have, you will recall, submitted a bid to the National Targeted Investment Fund, which is a ring-fenced fund to increase the physical operating capacity in the NHS. It's a capital fund, and we've been successful in obtaining £15 million of that to create an elective operating centre at St Luke's Hospital, which is a big undertaking, and we're aiming to have that operational by Q4 of 2023. On urgent care, we still continue to see large numbers of patients presenting through A&E, and we're at the very critical point in our winter planning phase, where just the end of this week, we will be in line with other places in West Yorkshire and indeed West Yorkshire as a whole, submitting our collective winter plans. And Saj and the operational team and Karen and Ray have been very intimately involved in the formulation of those. That is about creating the additional capacity we anticipate we will need through that traditionally heavy demand period of winter, which of course quite unusually in this year because of COVID, most especially, we've seen that really carry on throughout the whole of the summer period. So it hasn't been the case that there has been any respite really in that before we enter that traditional high demand period of October, November, December onwards. The number of COVID patients has, however, been in decline, but it's worthy of note, I think, and I'm seeing on social media actually just this morning, a sudden upturn in the number of COVID inpatients. So we have got 22. We did have a lower number than that. We had 6 just identified in the last 24 hours. And interestingly, it is the case that that represents a big percentage increase. And it has been reported in other places that just this week we're seeing quite a significant increase in the number of inpatients with COVID, which is worrying at this point in the year. Now, you will hear later probably from Karen as the vaccination lead. We are just about in our place to start the autumn vaccination period, which is a dual vaccination against flu and the COVID-19 virus for those who are most at risk of that, which includes, of course, our own staff, our own frontline staff. So that work is about to begin. Of course, we have, after a period of National Mourning, a lot more political conversations beginning to take place in the last 24 hours. We have heard from our new Secretary of State about her priorities in the coming weeks, and indeed our new Prime Minister. The terminology of A, B, C, D as the priorities that are most under scrutiny: ambulances, backlog care, doctors and dentists. We have heard from Secretary of State, and you will probably have picked up just this morning the fact that there are new targets to be set for patients to be able to access GPs within 2 weeks of them identifying the need for an appointment. So these things will start to trickle down through the normal political machinery, their interpretation and adoption through the NHS England, communications to us, and we will respond as we always do in line with that. This, since we last met, we've also had some really good news in that we've opened our shared care facility in our renal services. So that was a combined capital investment from ourselves as an organisation, but also helped by Sovereign Healthcare as a charitable donation from them. And that sees an expansion of our ability to help patients with chronic renal disease who are dependent on dialysis to take more responsibility and ownership of how they manage that condition at home. And it's an amazing facility. And if you might have picked up on our coverage of that, there was a patient who had benefited from that shared care opportunity, describing to the people who were there at the opening, myself included, just the difference that it makes. You know, for a chronic renal patient who has to experience maybe 3 or 4 episodes of 3 hours worth of dialysis, what the impact that has on their lives. And Izzy was a young guy when he was diagnosed. He was a paramedic, and the impact that had on his life, his children's lives, was incredibly intrusive. And effectively he was then left having to plan his life around his treatment episodes. We're taking control under the supervision and guidance of our shared care model. He was able to take control of that and fit his treatment in around his life and what he wanted to do with his life. So really life-changing stuff, which I think we should be incredibly proud of our renal team for making that happen, and great work from our states and facilities teams too. We had of course, you will hear later on, and you've alluded to it already, the CQC inspection of urgent care, which wasn't specifically around the care that we provide, although we were included in it because it was one of the first system inspections of urgent care across an ICB footprint. And in that regard, we were one of 5 places inspected. There will be an action plan in response to those findings that will be held and overseen at West Yorkshire ICB level, but equally, as you will see here later, we will have our own part to play in responding to the recommendations of their findings here at BTHFT. Again, we hear a lot about maternity services, and very rightly so. It's been a huge focus of our discussions as a board over the last 3 years. And it's always good to get that external validation and perspective on the progress that we have made and still need to make. And in that regard, you'll be hearing from our head of midwifery, as Max, you've alluded to already, on the outcome of the Ockenden visit and the more recent visit from the national team. I'm going to move to our people now because, as Max, you have said, this has been a very sad and unusual period for us. The death of Her Late Majesty Queen Elizabeth brought a very sombre tone, as you might expect, to the organisation over the last 2 weeks, and colleagues across the Trust were supported to pay their respects, to register their condolences, to participate in the national moments of reflection, And this also so the organisation reacts speedily and effectively to the news in adopting NHS protocols around the way that we communicate, how we organise and postpone some of our meetings and more public announcements that would have ordinarily happened during that time. In addition to that, preparations for the bank holiday on the day of the funeral itself was an enormous undertaking. We know we're very used to having bank holidays planned to take place throughout the year, and because of that, we know when they are going to be, and we do not schedule the organisation to work as usual on those occasions. But on this one, of course, we hadn't expected it, and we were planned to be very busy. And doing all the things that we would normally do. And at the same time, we wanted to respect, as an organisation, people's desire to not be in work on that day. I'm sure, like many of us on the board, I was glued to my television for a lot of that day in paying tribute to a much-loved monarch and the passing of a much-loved monarch. But at the same time, we did want to mitigate the impact of withdrawal of business as usual as much as we can in prioritising, of course, clinical need, those patients with urgent and life-threatening conditions, those that were time critical, those patients with cancer, and we did that, and it took an enormous amount of planning and execution. So thanks to Saj, our clinical teams, our administrative teams for contacting many hundreds of patients to rearrange their appointments and to let them know exactly what was happening. We also went live at the beginning of September with our CSU structure. So we've now got clinical service units and not clinical business units, and we have fewer of those, and an expectation that we will strengthen over time the roles and responsibilities of those leadership teams in those areas. We will continue to build on the relationship we have as an exec team with them, and that was the consequence of an awful lot of hard work from our HR professionals, from our operational team, and a great deal of leadership from our clinical and operational triumvirate at executive level to make that work as effectively and seamlessly, actually, as we possibly could. And I think it marks a real sort of milestone in the evolution of the concept of giving more autonomy and authority to people nearer to our patients and giving them the opportunity to make the differences that they want to make. On a high point, we have in the next couple of weeks our Razzle Dazzle board. We've had almost 140 nominations from across the organisation for our 5 awards: a Chairman's Award, our Kindness Award, our Diversity Award, our We Are One Team and We Value People awards. And I'm really looking forward, after 3 years, I remember distinctly one of my first jobs when I came to this organisation was go to Bradford Football Club for our modest celebration of what we had achieved in an afternoon, and you will remember that, Max, too. I think it was our first sort of double act as chair and chief exec, and there was a promise made then that we would do something that I think will recognise people's efforts in a much more kind of focused and celebratory way, bigger and better, and really give an indication of the value that we attach to the people who work for us in this organisation, and this is the culmination of that. And I really want to thank Julie in particular for her leadership of the steering group, because I think we've got something really special that we can all hopefully look forward to attending. Moving on to our partners, as previously alluded to, we have had our ICB board meeting take place. Our second one of those, that was to constitute the ICB. Our second one of those took place just this week, actually, and we were fortunate to be able to host that in Manningham. as is the plan for the ICB boards. They will go on tour and they will broadcast, if you like, from each of our 5 places that make up the partnership. It just happened to be Bradford's turn this time, so we live streamed the whole board meeting, and in advance of the board meeting we had a really good engagement event with the board, with a collection of young people across West Yorkshire, to hear directly from them about what their wants and needs and expectations were of our partnership. In our own place, our ICP board, under the leadership of our new independent chair, Elaine Appleby, was scheduled to take place on the 15th of September, and obviously due to the period of national mourning, that has been postponed now to the 29th of September, when Max and myself will be in attendance. I don't know whether people managed to catch the fact that Nancy O'Neill, one of our Bradford District and Craven Healthcare Partnership directors, was selected. A very small number of NHS employees were selected to represent the NHS actually in Westminster Abbey at the funeral on Monday, and Nancy was one of those. And as a consequence of that, she attracted a whole host of invitations to appear on national and local media, which she accepted because she wanted to convey, which I think was great, you know, the reflections of the NHS and the thanks and the support for our monarch, but also to acknowledge not just her role as a director in the NHS, but speak kindly and positively on what we are doing in Bradford District and Craven, which she did at every opportunity and across West Yorkshire. So I think she was an absolutely fantastic ambassador. She did a great job for us in that regard, really exceptional. I've already alluded to the Autumn Booster campaign that has started, and that, of course, is very much a place priority. Whilst Karen is the SRO for it, it's an undertaking that is contributed to by all players across our partnership. And then the final thing I wanted to just say, and it has been mentioned already, was that yesterday myself and John and maybe not colleagues on here, but other colleagues from across the organisation attended Bradford Football Club for the launch of the Reducing Inequalities Alliance. Kirsten England is the director sponsor, chief exec sponsor rather, under our Act as One set of programmes and priorities for that particular enabling work stream, with Sahel as the clinical lead. And it was a really positive event. We had some great, really well-renowned and nationally regarded speakers. Bola Abawali, who is the national lead for this, although she couldn't be present in person, she sent a great video commending the work of Bradford in this regard. Links to what Saj has been saying about, for our part, what can we do? Well, we know that we can do something about trying to expedite treatment for those most affected by waiting for it when they come from a background that somehow disadvantages them. And it was a great event. That's all I wanted to say, Chair. Happy to take questions.
That's great, Mel. Thank you very much indeed. And can I, as chairman, just repeat or reinforce your comment, Mel, to exec colleagues and beyond for the quick and appropriate work they had to do regarding the bank holiday. You know, well done, team, because I know that wasn't easy. And I know there were debates about, should we invite people maybe not to take the bank holiday off and take it another time, etc., etc. It was quite a challenging time. And I also, Mel, recognise your point about reinforcing service provision wherever we could, where there were clinical priorities that needed to be considered. So I'm very grateful to all staff who worked to support that and delivered some services on the day. And great work by the team who had to get in touch with people and say, I'm sorry, your outpatient appointment is cancelled and will be rearranged. So well done to the team, and just wanted to reinforce your comment there. Thank you. Shall I just check whether does anybody have any questions or queries of Mel? Of course, they might arise during the course of the meeting anyway. Okay, no, that's great. And Mel, just moving off the business reports, we'll go into the corporate strategy. But Mel, can I just, through you, thank and commend John Holden, who this week did a briefing and discussion on corporate strategy and the way in which we might monitor development towards achieving those aims in the corporate strategy, which we know will be through board development sessions. So John led a really helpful and useful discussion amongst non-exec colleagues on Tuesday of this week, and I'm grateful to John for that. Similarly, Mel, can I just bring again through you to your attention, at the same meeting we were then joined by our consultant paediatrician, Matthew Matai, who talked us through the Healthier Together resource. If you're not already aware of that, I hope you might be with the talk you just had there about inequalities. But it's a resource aimed mostly at young people or parents of young people, and is extremely accessible. That's the point. You can click on a single button and change it into whichever language might be most appropriate for you. An absolutely terrific resource. So Matt came and talked to us all about that, and we were extremely encouraged by the work he was doing on that. So Healthier Together, I don't just have the exact website address with me at the moment, but he's hoping as well to promote that into more of a platform by which there's engagement by people and they can get some advice, etc. So I just wanted to share with you that the non-execs were assisted greatly by John and Matt in two good briefings. So thank you to both of them. Thanks, Mel. And if there's no further questions, shall we move on to strategy matters then? I think, shall we take these three matters now, and then we'll have a short break and let people just stretch their legs and get a fresh cup of tea. Okay, so there's going to be a break at the end of these three issues in section 4. And I will turn firstly to Paul, who presents the Digital Strategy Annual Report. It is, of course, to note, great document, Paul, but is there anything you'd wish to emphasise or reinforce with us in asking us to note that?
Thanks, Max. I mean, I did want to pick out a few brief highlights. I'm conscious that we did spend a bit of time and effort on the design of the document, so hopefully people felt that was time well spent and was therefore reasonably readable and accessible in that context. But I just wanted to pick up on a few threads, partly on the way in which you've built our discussion this morning, Max, which is, what are we doing as an organisation? What are we doing in our relationships and partnerships at place, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So I mean, fundamentally within the organisation, and it'll reappear in the maternity update later, one of our biggest steps forward was to include the Cerner maternity application within our overall Cerner First approach, and to go live with that in March of this year. There's always an immediate rocky period soon after a deployment of a capability in electronic patient record, but we've got through that, and I think all colleagues are seeing the direct benefit of that. We've paid attention. You'd expect us to be extra vigilant in the current external environment in terms of our cybersecurity and maintaining and ensuring that colleagues have access and are working in a warranted environment, and we're not at any risk of additional threat. And also critically, I think in the context of elective recovery, the way in which we've done significant work around the perioperative care pathway. Mel mentioned the targeted investment fund and the benefit of that in terms of St. Luke's. We were recipients of some funding in that context last year, and we've actively been able to provide not just transactional relationships with the public that are different, i.e. you can relate to your appointment schedule and change that digitally, but more importantly, or as importantly, access to dedicated materials that make sure that as you head towards your inpatient stay, that you're prehabilitating in that regard by getting access to dedicated materials to keep you as strong and as fit and as healthy in that waiting period, and also that you are then accessing similar resources digitally to rehabilitate post that surgical episode. So there's a range of applications and efforts within the organization that, to say, the report highlights, but are testament to digital, but digital working in consort with clinical colleagues in a whole variety of ways. And there's a significant section on virtual ward, which is led for the organization by John. But again, we're building on a really strong pedigree, deploying and engaging with the best of current technology, but increasingly having those conversations at place and beyond as it becomes a higher priority for NHS England in relation to national policy. The other areas I just wanted to flag up, and I mean, Julie picked up one of these earlier, and we will revisit it in private board later on, is that appetite and opportunity for partnership with Colverdale and Huddersfield, who we have shared an electronic patient record with over the last 5 or 6 years, but also for colleagues' awareness that Airedale have now, in the outline business case, the final business case stage of their EPR procurement. And we have an expectation that the board will be presented with that final business case in November at Airedale, and it does give us an absolute opportunity at place to turbocharge our efforts in relation to the collaborative working and to ensuring that all patient information is accessible in one place. Going forward for next year, we are rolling out a theatres and anaesthesia module within the EPR, and the opportunity to utilise that in St Luke's and the development that Mel highlighted earlier, again, I think presents a, I hate the phrase, but I'm going to use it, a win-win, because we're not just creating a new clinical environment there, we're also have an opportunity to use the best of digital technologies in that context. And we have undertaken a significant survey of some of our infrastructure. We would like to have reported real progress this year in terms of replacing what's technically called the edge and Wi-Fi. In practical terms, the pandemic has meant that the supplier lead time around some of these technologies is now in excess of 200 days. So we are in a position where we have afforded within the capital plan for 23-24 that investment, and are going through the necessary procurement steps now, and that will massively overhaul our ability to deliver virtual and digital services in a timely way, and in the way that people can be confident in relying on that infrastructure. The final things I was going to pick up are those that do relate to our relationships at place, where we've had a long-standing work stream to try and underpin the opportunities across partners in all of the statutory organisations, including the local authority, the university, and its very many guises. So I am actively meeting currently with the CIO of Bradford University on the basis of, are there technical assets and experiences that we could share and learning that we could share, at the same time as we've got a thriving relationship with the Digital Health Enterprise Zone at the university, and through Karen Dauber and colleagues Joe Hilton and others with Karen Stansfield, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Health Studies. So we're working with university partners at every level and degree, and I think that augurs well for the future. The local authority are launching their digital strategy later on this month, and again we've been key partners in respect to that. And with health partners at place and then on out to WIAT and the ICS, we're continuing to looking for candidates for economies of scale opportunities of shared learning and deep collaboration. So again, looking forward, I think in each of our layers of partnership and responsibilities, we're effective and we're executing stuff that makes a real difference. And then the last thing I would say is that anchor institution opportunity. I participated for an hour yesterday as part of, it's still branded the Leeds Digital Festival, so we'll have to do a bit of work with that. But it was a West Yorkshire Combined Authority session on entrepreneurship, growth, the digital economy, and West Yorkshire's position in relation to that. And again, we've underscored the fact that Bradford as a community is an excellent place to come and innovate, is an excellent place to come and develop a workforce, is an excellent place to come and develop a skills base. And I do think that will continue to present real opportunities, some real challenges, because that's an incredibly competitive working environment at the moment for some scarce resources. but actually we want to be in a position where we say to all of our communities, you come work here, come develop your skills base here, come work alongside our partners and make your life and career in Bradford.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, I found this a really useful report. Thanks. Succinct, clear, and with a strong focus on collaborative working across place and beyond. So I thought it was terrific, Paul. Thank you. I'll open up for any comments or thoughts. And of course, I'm sure Paul would also welcome any responses to be sent directly to him. But Altaf, please do come in.
Yeah, thank you, Max, and thank you, Paul. I think what the document shows is there's been a tremendous amount of work done by Paul and his excellent team, and the way that we've stepped up to the plate during the pandemic and afterwards. It's been admirable. It's a tremendous amount of work done between Paul and Sarge around health inequalities. That's all great. I've just got one question. I'll keep it really short. As our kind of digital landscape becomes more and more complex, there's always a risk of a tug of war for our data, our patients' data, between our needs and health tech. Health tech like to hold on to data as long as possible, and sometimes for commercial reasons introduce barriers to access to our data. I just want to know how we can be, as a board, reasonably assured that there's sufficient process and scrutiny in place when we're selecting partners and collaborators, that we have sufficient access to our data through licensing, legal, standardization, and internal capabilities to be able to use that data freely in the future. In new contexts as they emerge that we might not foresee today, really.
It's a great question, Altaf, and thank you for it. I mean, it's interesting that Ray will introduce the research strategy in a few moments, and clearly the lifeblood of that research is our ability to access data, some of which is internal to us, and we do have 3 or 4 partners where you would say, we rely on Cerner, we rely on TPP, we rely on Clinisys. It is about using that contractual and legal leverage. It's also about doing it within a national paradigm. There's an increasing amount of attention as a consequence of the Ben Goldacre report on making sure that we don't end up exactly where the foreboding that you're presenting there, with that data locked in either silos or worse still, proprietary silos. So I think it's a multifaceted thing. Do we have the leverage we need in all of our commercial arrangements? Probably not. Do we have opportunities when we refresh those to incorporate new standards and expectations where the articulation of that's happening nationally? Increasingly so. But again, we are in an environment of multinational players who can be and exercise a degree of monopoly, duopoly type leverage in relation to us. So the honest answer is we stay vigilant. We endeavour to ensure that we can access that data consistently, and then we back that up, as you'd expect, with all of the security and all of the IG and assurance that our use of that data is appropriate and approved. So it's a constant dynamic, and I would say we're getting increasing support nationally because the value of that data to the future is well acknowledged for UK PLC and for the health and social care system generally.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a great detailed response demonstrating vigilance. Altaf, were you happy with what you heard, or would you wish to make any?
I'm very happy. My only follow-up would be is what more can we do as a board, as a team, to help support Paul's objectives? Is that through procurement, legals, finance? If there's any additional support that he thinks is lacking that we as a team can provide towards that end, and I think that needs to be identified.
Thank you, Altaf. Yeah, Paul, any final thought on that?
I mean, I feel consistently supported by director and board colleagues, and I think it is sometimes about, ironically, it's the partnership element that we articulated so clearly in the document, Max, because you do need the leverage of saying this is an expectation or a requirement across all of the acute trusts in West Yorkshire, or this is an expectation and a requirement of at the ICB, or this is an expectation and a requirement. So I mean, I think we're well set. Director colleagues know that I imminently are bringing back a proposal to them where I think we do need to underpin the general level of resource that we apply to digital to get the best of it going forward. But it's appropriate for that conversation to be conducted through executive reach in the first instance, knowing that the full board have demonstrated and exhibit their support for this agenda consistently.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. And thank you, Altaf, for raising an excellent point. Thank you very much. I feel assured regarding the vigilance about that. So thank you. Good point. And may I check whether there's any further questions? We're invited to note the digital strategy annual report. And perhaps to non-exec colleagues, if I could just commend the report to you. There's a few little sound bites in there again that are worth us promoting and sharing and talking about as we go about our trust business. Some great examples of working collaboratively well together. So, okay. Paul, thank you very much. Yeah, I love the emphasis on certain points. So great stuff. Thank you. Shall we move to item 9? A warm welcome to senior nursing colleagues who are joining us for discussion on this. And colleagues, we determined as a board, Karen and I, of course, spoke beforehand, but actually we are seeking board approval, or at least endorsement of this strategy. It's an extremely important strategy. There's perhaps a little work, Laura and I have talked about this, and John, I think, will be part of that, as to decide what are we okay with approving at academies or elsewhere and what needs to come before board. But this is the nursing and midwifery strategy, and I do want all directors to have the opportunity to consider it and hopefully to endorse it with their full support. But it means that it's a collective authorisation of this. So Karen, shall I turn to you then, please, in that spirit of warmly welcoming nursing colleagues with us, and what would you wish to bring to our attention, please, in the sense of wishing us to endorse this nursing and midwifery strategy?
Thank you. There is a slide pack that we've pulled together. I'm not sure if Katie or Sheridan or somebody can share that for me. If not, I can talk through and send the slides out afterwards. So welcome to some of my colleagues, so the senior nurses and midwives on the call. So this is part of our journey to nursing excellence. And you will have heard me talk, I think I've discussed it at board development. You can go to the next slide, please, around Magnet. And Magnet is an American-based tool around nursing accreditation. It's nationally known. It is seen as sort of the highest benchmark, really, to achieve nursing excellence. And there's a strict criteria that just must be met to apply for this. We were lucky enough to actually have our Magnet journey funded because we're participating in a Magnet for Europe research trial, which means that with other hospitals, not just in this country, but throughout Europe, we are twinned with hospitals in America, and they are going on this Magnet journey with us, which means that the research study is looking at how nursing care improves, but also how retention, staff morale and people metrics improve by adhering to the principles. So previously we had our health professionals framework that ran until this year, and that encompassed anybody that wasn't a doctor, really, that was classed as a clinician. We then took into consideration the revised trust corporate strategy and split into two, and we've now got an AHP strategy and a nursing and midwifery strategy. And both of these documents will help us set out our vision of how we move forwards to achieve that real excellence, really. It's all in line with national priorities and what you would expect to see there. And as I've already said, it touches on those Magnet standards as well. Next slide, please. So Sally Scales, who some of you will know as my previous deputy, is still a director of nursing in the organisation and led throughout COVID on developing the strategy, but also the governance that sits around it and the leadership councils that we now have quite embedded actually within nursing and midwifery. And there was a number of small working groups set aside, because what we wanted to do is really make sure that we consulted and got wide clinical engagement. And we wanted to make sure that it was really simple and that anybody could understand it. And it doesn't matter if you are a healthcare assistant or the chief nurse, it needs to resonate with everybody, because we are all delivering elements of care, and that's really important. Next slide, please. So the strategy is broken down into a number of areas. Let's give me next slide. I'll carry on regardless. So the strategy is broken down into a number of areas. And again, these fit into our overall trust strategy as well. But we're looking at leadership. We talked about what leadership means to our people, how we will support people, how we will develop leaders, how we make sure that people look at Bradford and think, that's a place where I want to go to be the very best nurse or midwife that I possibly can be. Next slide, please. We also want to make sure that we, and this is in line with, I mean, all of these are linked, and that's why we've designed it in these concentric circles. So, you know, as well as the leadership, we need to make sure that we educate and develop people, and that we are clear about the routes that people can take. At the moment, we're doing something quite exciting, which is almost a roadmap of all the, and it started off as quite a linear document saying you can go from a band 5 to a band 6 to a band 7, and actually it's looking more like an ancient oak tree, because there are so many routes that you can go off on, whether that be research into education, into nurse leadership, into clinical practice and excellence in practice. So we really want to have as many pathways as possible for our nurses and midwives to be the absolute best that they can be, but also how we spot people and bring people through that we can help start on a journey to become a registrant if that's what they wish to do as well. Next slide, please. So at the heart of all that we do, because if we don't get this bit right, we're absolutely losing something, is making sure that patient experience is the one thing that we are striving for, a really positive experience. And this is where embracing kindness links into this as well. But it really is a fundamental of nursing care. When I think back to how I trained, when we actually talked about fundamentals of nursing care, that positive experience and the welfare of that patient was always paramount. Next slide, please. We also know that you won't have happy patients if you haven't got happy staff. So again, really focusing, working with colleagues across the board in HR, OD, to make sure that our staff, when they come to work, can actually have joy at work. And a lot of the work that we're doing through our leadership conferences, through the OD work that isn't my work, it's our work, will actually help our staff have a better experience of coming to work. And it can sometimes be the little things around what uniform people wear, when it is 100 degrees outside, making sure there's an ice cream van, saying thank you. And again, we've got some exciting work that we're doing in this space. Yesterday, I was just hearing about something called the Daisy campaign, which is a national recognised campaign of awarding kindness and excellence in nursing and midwifery, and how we would look to implement that here. So really crucial that we get that staff experience right, because that will allow us to retain staff. And again, we want Bradford to be the place that people want to work. We want people to say, flipping out, if you want to be a good nurse, you go and work at Bradford. That's absolutely the best place to be. Next slide, please. Partnership working is not just about working across the organisation, but it's actually about working across place, wider than that, and making sure that we really have those strong links with our communities, that we are inclusive in all that we do. The pandemic has taught us very valuable lessons on how that wider working is crucial to get things right. And I think it's shown us all that we won't always get it right, but by speaking to others and involving others, we can do that more. And we're all really committed to being inclusive and working together as that wider team to really improve services. Next slide, please. Quality and safety of care is traditionally we've looked at nursing metrics and they've not really evolved that much in the last 10 or 15 years. We traditionally look at pressure ulcers, at falls, and actually they are a marker of quality and safe care, but we want to make sure that we are developing more markers of safe care, how we're improving quality, how we're embedding that, how we're getting change embedded from departments and wards and individuals, and really sparking staff to be innovative, to make real improvements in the quality of care. And we have seen a lot of that. We saw it through the pandemic, and we were seeing it before the pandemic with our social media presence, people really having permission to act and move forwards. And I do think I was reflecting with Sally just this week that if the pandemic hadn't happened, I think we will be much further on this journey and much better able to describe more that we were doing at grassroots level. But I am very proud of the teams and all that they have achieved so far. If we move on to the next slide, please. Implementation of Nurses Day is in May. The strategy before this had been through EMT. We've talked about it at Quality Academy as well. And the magnet and the governance that sits underneath that has also been through to our Quality and Safety Committee. And I'm just looking at that picture and thinking I need to get a new picture because that's one of my larger ones. So Sally, let's change that picture, please. So it was, the implementation went very well. People were again very proud. There was a lot of social media messages about it. This feels different from other things. That's the end of the presentation, so we can stop sharing now. Thank you. This feels different because this feels like we are really starting at grassroots and building something special. We've launched our council days, so we have 6 councils that sit underneath our Nursing and Midwifery Leadership Council. And we actually got this idea from our shadow hospital in New York, where they have a Nursing and Midwifery Leadership Day, which is 1 day a month. And everybody knows that that's the day for that. So we have a series of meetings throughout a day, and they all come together at the end of the day with me. And they've started to look at things, you know, some quite meaty things about pathways and how we develop advanced practice, but also some really simple things like professional conduct, use of mobile phones, nail care is another thorny, sticky issue. But what we want to do is make sure that the people who are delivering the care and involved in the care are in position to really influence what we do. Now, I'm conscious that's a whistle-stop tour. I haven't brought colleagues on to necessarily speak, but I've brought them on to contribute if you would like to ask people any questions. So open to you guys to ask questions. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Karen. So it's the nursing and midwifery strategy. You can see there are 6 key areas of focus, and it's endorsed entirely by our chief nurse and indeed the senior nursing team that are with us, who are also available if there's any questions to ask. But let's pick up on any points that are raised. So Karen, would you like to come in first, please? And then Janet.
Thanks, Max. Just really wanted to say well done. This is an awesome strategy. It's beyond clear. And really easy to understand and just very accessible for people. So I really like it. There were a couple of things. We talk a lot about civility in the workplace when we talk about looking after our people, and I wondered whether or not it was worth referencing that within there. I know we've got embedding kindness and there's a lot about looking after our people, but in terms of leadership, leading that civility in the workplace. I just wondered whether it was worth a nod or not. And just really interested in how you might be able to use this in attraction and recruitment, because we see a lot of competition locally for the same resources, but why would people not want to join Bradford based on that?
Well said, Karen. Yeah, thank you. And I'll take any comments or questions or thoughts, Karen, and then maybe come back to you and the team if there's any responses. So, Janet, please.
Many thanks. Comments really I've brought up. So thank you very much. We did hear the strategy at the Quality and Patient Safety Academy, and it was very welcome. And some of the points and some of my concerns initially was about inclusivity. It was about diversity. It was about how the nursing and the midwives were going to engage holistically with the multi-professional team and other team members across the trust, and have good conversations and build trust and have really, really good effective communication. So we felt reassured that that was embedded within the strategy. And so part of my initial concern was it may come across as professionally parochial. So that was just where I was at. Given the national challenge in the workforce, this is so timely to attract people to want to become nurses and midwives and want to come to Bradford, where the learning is exceptionally rich. And I was really pleased to see the focus on nurses and midwives feeling safe as an employee, feeling safe from bullying internal, feeling safe to be able to speak up, feeling safe externally from the public gaze and the media criticism, and there's more to come. And I just think if there's more we can do to enable the workforce, particularly this workforce, because they're under that really harsh social gaze, to feel safe as an employee, I think that will really help retention, well-being, and all those other indicators that make people want to stay with us and come and work with us. So I'm very supportive, despite my initial comment.
No, thank you very much, Janet. Yeah, and Karen. So very, very supportive comments. And in terms of kind of critical friend challenges, is there something missing perhaps around civility? And could it potentially be seen as a little professionally parochial with the points raised? But obviously in the context of entire and full support by director colleagues. Sally, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thank you. So I suppose what I just want to do, obviously I led a lot of this for Karen, quite a difficult time really in terms of being able to consult, and I suppose I just wanted to provide some assurance to the board, and I hope you can see that through the wording that we've used, that we did, this was very much a bottom-up approach, and some of the conversations Karen and I had at the beginning was, should it just adopt the trust? Sorry. Always happens, doesn't it? Should we just adopt the format that we've used for the trust strategy? Because obviously that's very that would be a very good way to do it. But we stuck with this because this is where we came to from talking to our nurses and midwives at all levels. And although we couldn't have a big workshop like we might have done pre-COVID, we did smaller workshops and lots of consultation. And I was out and about a lot talking to people on the ground and really trying to fashion something that would be meaningful to them, that would be valuable to them, and that will, actually reflect what they want to see. And certainly when we got to the point of launching it, we did that, as you can see through the pictures, not just sort of having a stand in the main entrance, but actually we went around every single ward. We did the usual thing of having a trolley. It was all COVID friendly, etc., secure, etc. But we had conversations with people as well. And we made very clear that this is about guiding it, so looking at it in two ways. What will it do for you, but also how will you contribute to what we're trying to achieve in terms of nursing and midwifery excellence? And it was very well received. I mean, it's interesting to take the point about civility, and that's something we can build in going forward. And I suppose one of the things Karen mentioned about having established the the trust councils. So one of the things that we have now done is each of the councils has, if you like, responsibility or oversight of some of those objectives. So they're all captured somewhere. And the next part that we're going to do is to put in KPIs where they're appropriate to monitor how we're doing that. So I think it's really good that you've given so many favourable comments. And as I say, I just wanted to provide that assurance that it was very much built from the bottom upwards. And so that was why we stuck with that approach. But what we have also tried to do, or what I did with a medical illustration, is make sure that it does reflect back to the trust strategy all the time, and particularly some of the areas like partnership, because often clinical staff, when they see those words in a big strategic document, don't always relate it to them. So what we were trying to do is see how that relates to them. What does it mean for them? Which is why we've got each page that says, what do we mean by this? So that was sort of translating it into words that they would understand.
Thanks, Sally. That's really helpful context and detail. Thank you. And it's very assuring to hear that it does reflect the views of those doing the job. So thank you. Thanks, Sally. Yeah. Janet, please do come back in. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. And I think my only other comment, which is positive, is that the workforce that you currently have will embrace the future nurse and midwife standards, because there's a dichotomy between those that are coming through and for some and some of our current workforce. So I was very that the ethos not is just the internal strategy, it will meet the national skill mix and requirements of that workforce. So it's taking everybody forward, and that must be an attractive thing to offer people looking to come and work at Leeds. I'm sitting in Leeds, in Bradford.
Thank you, Janet. Well said. Yes, yeah, very, very good point. Thanks.
Thank you.
So can I just check whether are there any further comments from any other directors? Because as I say, myself and the Chief Nurse, Karen, just talked about this earlier, and we accept that it needs board approval. It's important stuff, this nursing and midwifery strategy. So here's an opportunity for anybody to raise anything they would wish to, if they need to. But otherwise, I'm going to assume that there is support. Karen, should I turn to you for any final comments or thoughts? You've heard the point about civility, etc.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the very positive comments. So what we want to try and do is make sure that we don't monopolise almost work that is trust-wide work. So the civility stuff, you know, there is a defined forum where that is happening as part of that people strategy and the OD piece. So we will touch on civility as part of our councils, but we've not been explicit because we link into the people strategy or the quality strategy and the wider trust strategies. I was smiling to myself about Janet's comment about being a bit parochial, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking, I don't think I make an excuse for that. I think nursing and midwives make up the largest clinical workforce in the trust. They're around 24/7. I'm a nurse myself, so maybe I'm biased, but I think we are a bit special. And if we don't get the workforce right, and it's for all workforces, we'll be sunk. So I think it is really important that we do recognise this group of staff and call that out. So thank you everybody for your overwhelming support. Very pleased.
Thank you very much, Karen. And to Karen and Janet, can I thank you for bringing to our attention how you see it as a really important document for encouraging people to want to come and work in Bradford, how they can see some structure to the development and the way in which we deliver nursing and midwifery. And I really like that. I hadn't perhaps picked up as strongly as you two had. So thank you for reinforcing that point. Karen and our senior nursing colleagues, of course, thank you for joining us. There's no expectation to talk, of course, but glad you've been here for part of the discussion. And it would appear there is entire and full board support of this. So you have the entire full support of the board of directors for this nursing and midwifery strategy, and we'll make it work, won't we? We'll do that. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and thank you to those of you that were able to join us for that conversation. Delighted to hear that it's got so much obvious and full support. Thank you. And finishing on our strategy matters, so yeah, thank you those that joined us. And finishing on our strategy matters, shall I turn to and just to remind you, by the way, the nursing and midwifery, there's the two documents, of course, so the strategy itself and the presentation slides. So I'm sure colleagues have read those. So research strategy, we've got the research strategy and two appendices, the strategy itself and the City of Research framework, authored by John Wright, presented by our Chief Medical Officer, Ray, and the request is that we might, as a board, approve this research strategy. Ray, should I turn to you and ask whether there's anything you'd wish to emphasise or particularly reinforce with us?
Thanks, Max. Yes, a few things. So first, can I offer John Wright's apologies? He was hoping to be able to come and attend and help with the presentation today, but unfortunately he is not around today, so he's not able to do that. And of course, John's got a certain eloquence and charisma about him, but unfortunately he's stuck with me in my concise version. So, but I'll do my best. So, first of all, with the strategy, this is a new 5-year strategy covering 22 to 27, and it replaces a previous strategy. I think there are a few things that I'm particularly pleased about with this strategy. So as a board, you've been incredibly supportive of raising the profile of research at board level and within the organisation. And I think it's really important that we don't see the Bradford Institute of Health Research as separate entities. It's very much part of our organisation. They are our people, and the work that they do there is our work, and that's something we've been really keen to push, certainly over the last couple of years. So I'm particularly pleased that the research strategy very much aligns to the trust strategy. I think that shows really kind of good integration there. So there's people, partners and place. The omission of patients is deliberate because, of course, research is a little bit different. So in the people section, there are 3 arms to that, really. So it's the people as in the workforce there, the patients, of course, because patients do participate in research, and we would encourage that because it certainly increases or improves the quality of care, but also participants, of course, who are volunteers. So I think the people for research by necessity is slightly different. So the omission of patients is a deliberate omission. We did talk about that and whether it should be there. And I think the other things for me is the strategy. So it does look back at the achievements of throughout the previous strategy, the past 5-6 years, and I think that's okay. I think it's important to celebrate the successes, but I think it should be about building on those successes, not harking back to what's gone before, because research, of course, is all about looking forwards, and a strategy going forwards should always be about looking forwards as well. So I think there's an incredibly strong foundation there. I'm pleased that the strategy focuses on translational research. I think that's particularly strong for Bradford, and as you know, Max, we've recently been successful with a new substantial grant from the NIHR around translational research, and so I think that's very important. And I think what the strategy does as well, and again, we've all been keen for this, and this is a focus on our patients and our staff being involved in research. We want first and foremost research to be something which happens within our organisations, so that our patients and our staff can benefit from the knowledge that research brings. So I think that's a welcome addition to this strategy from last time. And I think it also aligns to the new CSU structure, so it's taken that into consideration. It talks about the new CSU structure in there, which is important. And what we want to do again is to embed research into every clinical services unit, to make research and education things that we discuss at executive CSU meetings. What's happening, how are you using research, what's going on in your CSU. So I think that's really important. And there's going to be a research contact for every CSU that we have, in the same way that we have for quality, and the same way that we are going to have as well for education. So from the research team, there will be a contact point who liaises regularly with the number within the CSU, so that they can link up and support and inspire about what's going on with research. So I'll talk a little bit about the City of Research framework, if that's okay, because it does really all link in, although it's a separate paper. So the City of Research paper is, I think, again, really important. So just as healthcare crosses organisational boundaries, so should research. And this of course is encompassed with our Actors One, and the City of Research paper describes a research as one plan. So there's been really good engagement with partners in our place, and what we want really is for a joined up research offering across Bradford District and Craven Place, so that we can give the best benefit to all sections of our society. So it covers how it will be developed, it covers the governance process, it covers how it will be implemented, and really importantly, how that research will be disseminated and how it can be used to benefit patient care across our place. It talks about the establishment of a City of Research Strategic Board, and establishing better and maintaining strong links with the Yorkshire and Humber Clinical Research Network. So I think it's definitely the direction of travel, certainly with healthcare, and I think it should be the direction of travel in research as well. I think this is well recognised in this document, and John and Tracy and colleagues have asked the board to support the approach of a collaborative research offering under the title of City of Research. So that's all I was wanting to say, but obviously happy to talk through any points that the board want to raise.
Great stuff, Ray. Thank you very much indeed. It certainly feels very connected and joined up to me. A strategy based on people, partners and place, and then of course the City of Research ambitions. So it's great. It's terrific. Thank you. The recommendation to board, as Ray touched on, is that it's recommended the strategy is approved so that it can be implemented through various work packages that will be monitored by the Trust Research Committee, reporting to our Quality and Patient Safety Academy. Does anybody need any further detail or have any questions or comments, please, before I invite the board to approve of this? Mel, please, and then Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So it's less about the strategy and more about the City of Research proposal, Ray, and it may be that you can't answer it, but I'm not sure that we've seen this anywhere in our sort of governance around the Actors One. So I'm just a little bit unclear. I recall seeing a paper that John did some time ago that was talking about rather than City of Research being the headline, it was sort of research as one, and a proposal to work for the constituent parts of the Actors One partnership to work much more closely in this space. Is this something different to that? Do you know? What's the sort of provenance of this particular document?
I think this is probably sort of badging that work and bringing it together, Mel, really. So I think it talks about the Integrated Partnership Board, I think in the paper, and about including that on that agenda. So I think this is the embodiment of that discussion.
So it's kind of a precursor to this coming as a discussion paper to the Integrated Partnership Board is what we think. We're guessing, I guess.
Yes, I think so. I think this is really to get all partners to sign up to the principles that this is the right thing to do, and then I think the detail will come to the partnership board subsequently. And I think that is talked about, I think, on the last page actually of the document about the oversight of the partnership board should have.
Yeah. So in a sense, it's because we are probably, as a board, we are probably holders of one of the greatest asset bases for an approach to a joined up research capability across the city, i.e., you know, everything that we have, the Wilson, the Institute, John, etc., etc. It's seeking this board's endorsement for that to be almost offered up, I guess, as a bit of the fulcrum for a much more integrated approach to that across the city.
Yeah, yes, I think, I mean, obviously we hold a lot of the assets that would be part of this collaboration. So I think it's certainly not handing over those assets, but as you say, it's welcoming others to be a part of that asset, so we can work together for, you know, the benefit of the whole population.
Okay, thanks for that.
I think, Mel, may I say, I think that was a fair comment as well, that it's perhaps not had the visibility at some of our partnership meetings and in the previous form of partnership meetings that it might benefit from. So I do think you've raised a good point there. I think there's a need for some more general partner visibility amongst healthcare organisations. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, and Paul, would you like to come in, please? Yeah.
Thanks, Max. And mine is very similar to Mel's comments with a bit of a sort of twist. I think to my mind, there's an enabling and a beyond. So for the board's assurance in terms of the enabling elements, there's a lot of significant reliance from John and colleagues, rightly, on some of the infrastructure that the trust has in place and that we make available to them to do their work, and that will continue to be the case. And we're looking comprehensively at the extent to which that has lots of different dimensions to it. So from something as straightforward as access on the server to store things, through to the framework around IG, through to, you know, there's a whole set of things, and there are skills implied in the document and a workforce requirement implied, where again I'm having active conversations with John that say, well, we've got a data intelligence and insight function within the organization, and we've got capability in BIHR. How should we be reinforcing each other's skills base and the opportunity for career advancement, for example? So there's a sort of an enabling common platform. And then to Mel's point about a beyond, Mel and Kirsten a couple of weeks ago set a number of us the challenge to say, how do you as a set of individuals within the wider system demonstrate that Bradford can be more than the sum of its parts? And that's an undertaking that John is instrumental in, but John is instrumental in alongside myself and half a dozen or 8 other contributors to the above and beyond research agenda, because research is a significant dimension of data intelligence and insight, but actually demonstrating that quality improvement programs have made the impact, demonstrating that our performance is consistent with the expectation of the ICB, and so on and so forth. So again, it's just to say, from my perspective, there's an enabling dialogue, and there is a beyond engagement that Mel's rightly flagged up, that a number of us are involved in, to make sure that we are actively more than the sum of our parts.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, very good point. Yeah, and Janet, may I bring you in, please? And I'll go back to Mel then.
Well, you can, but it might be Mel's following up on the conversation. I don't want to change subject and then go back.
That's fine. I'll check that first then. Thank you. Yeah, so Mel, please do come in. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Janet, because yes, I did, because, and John will have heard this from Professor Chris Bentley's presentation yesterday at the Reducing Inequalities Alliance launch. Paul's absolutely right. I think this is one bit of a much bigger conversation about how we use the data. And yesterday, Chris Bentley used a phrase, and I wrote it down, I've recorded it for posterity: systematically collated insight. I think that is what we are seeking to achieve by creating the sum of the parts. So what he also said, which I thought was really striking, was knowing everything can be as bad as knowing nothing without the stories. And I think that marriage of the kind of the data, the insight, with the experience of providing services to patients, users, families, and their stories back at us through the engagement that we will have as the Act as One community with that citizens function as a board will bring us something that is very elusive to us right now. It's the kind of much greater than the sum of its parts. So this is a good starting point in some of that, but it's just the starting point, and relationships and bringing some very strong characters across our place who all think they're doing the right thing together for the good of the place is going to be really important in that.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks. And of course, we've got our Trust Research Committee to monitor that. Janet, please do come in.
Thank you very much. So just to segue into what I am going to talk about, very welcoming it, and it's great to see the outreach, the collaboration, the not in the strategy, not just looking at Bradford and the local big health challenges, because it's the global health challenges that the patient's data that's contributing to, and the synthesis of that's going to change patient care, and that's where the quality level. So I'm always very worried if any of our workforce believe that we would change practice based on some very local data without, with the global synthesis, depending what it is, of course, but in the big challenges, that's what we're looking for. But overall, it felt very exciting and a great place to work. The bit that I struggle with is when it reports to the Quality and Patient Safety Academy, because it feels a bit of an awkward fit, and I'm not too sure that sometimes of the questions I should be asking of the summary information that I'm getting. So I'm getting information what's happening, which doesn't necessarily feed directly into patient care. It's feeding into a body of knowledge. So the intention over time, it will inform quality and patient safety, but there's always that time lag. So in some ways, I'm just double checking it's reporting into the right academy. Probably so, but I'm just checking on that. I'm welcoming it, and then I'm tussling with the talk of the ICBs, and then talking about place, and then just talking about the city, and that we've already spoken about that, and that probably needs flushing out a little bit more. Overall welcome, just some clarity about where we really need to have it assured, and what are the questions we're asking of this business, because it's different.
Thank you very much, Janet. Yeah, I'm so used to research sitting under quality amongst NHS bodies. It's a great challenge, actually, you make. Yeah, yeah, safe, effective, and great patient experience. It tends to sit in nicely as research, but yeah, it's a good challenge. So, Ray, shall I turn to you for any final comments? I think people have had the chance to have their say, make their comments. Ray, it seems to me, chairing this, that we should ensure that those comments are picked up and fed back to John as the author of the document. I didn't get the impression that they were things that would cause people not to wish to support the strategy, but that they would wish to be assured that those comments and thoughts are going to be taken into account. I can see some nods. That seems to be right. Ray, any final thoughts in response to the discussion you've heard?
Thanks, Max. No, I'm grateful for the comments that have been made. I think they're all absolutely valid comments, and I'll certainly assure the board that I will take those back to John and to Tracy, and make sure those comments are acted upon. So thank you all for your support.
Thanks. And to Janet's final point, Ray, of course, we are raising the insights at board level into research, and so I think we can keep an eye, can't we, on the way in which the governance of our research strategy is being monitored. So that's extremely helpful. A very good point, Janet. Thank you. And thanks to everybody who made comments. We'll make sure they're collated, fed to John, and indeed, it may well be the subject of a further discussion at board, might it, as to how the thoughts of our research colleagues were to those comments. The question, board, is: do we feel able to approve this research strategy? Please so that it can be implemented through the packages, and at the moment through the Trust Research Committee and monitored by Quality and Patient Safety Academy. I'm going to take that as a yes. Thanks, everybody. That's great. So that research strategy is approved. Thank you for the quality of the comments and thoughts. That's terrific. Okay. So that's us dealt with the strategy bits. I promised a break, and we will do that now before we get into Academy business. I do know we're running over a little, but as ever, there's no way I want to discourage any comment, question, thoughts on what we've got. There's I suppose, a veiled request to people who might be presenting matters to be as succinct as we can, on the basis, of course, that papers have been shared. But we'll get into our Academy business now. So I've got 12:02 on my computer. Can I suggest 12:15, just to give people the chance to properly stretch their legs, maybe even grab a sandwich or something, and we can come back in fresh for the last. We've still got 2 hours of the meeting time here. So in 2 hours, I'm sure we can deal with the sections 4 and 5 and 6. Well, 4 and 5 really, isn't it? So we'll be able to do that. Okay, so we will start again now at 15:15. And thank you for the reminder, Paul. I do realise you do have to go to another meeting, so very much appreciated.